Suzanne, even though we all have been chatting already. This is Suzanne Fisher, if you've not met her before. She is on the board for the League of Women Voters North Carolina. And are you also on the board in Asheville, Buncombe?
I'm the president.
Yeah, the president. Okay, yes, you are. Busy lady. And so she is on the board of Asheville Buncombe League and very has been very involved in the idea of moving towards the national popular vote and trying to get North Carolina to sign that interstate compact and to go along with the League of Women Voters goal of abolishing the Electoral College. We asked Suzanne to come to sort of explain the reasoning behind this, the history of the Electoral College, why it's really an outdated system for electing the president, and how we can help as a league by forming an action team and hopefully getting our state legislature to go along with it. With that, Suzanne, I'll turn it over to you.
Right.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Uh, I'm sharing my screen and let me get to slideshow. I hope that's all okay for everybody.
Mhm.
Let me
Looks
just
great.
get rid of the gallery. And I will just say at the outset, this is a presentation that I am doing, just for league members. This is not something that's going to be a little wonkier than I would do, say, if I were talking to the Rotary Club or something like that. So I'll just say this one, I assume a certain amount of information and go from there. Let's see. Okay. We start with a land acknowledgement in Asheville Buncombe, so I'll just read this. North Carolina is the homeland of many indigenous nations. We recognize the sovereignty and traditional territories of these local tribal nations, the treaties used to remove them, and the histories of dispossession. We honor and respect the many diverse indigenous people who came before us, who are still here, and who are connected to the land on which we reside. And I'm not going to read this, but I want to always, when I can, highlight, I just am in love with this oath of the League of Women Voters that they put out on Inauguration Day. And we had a League 101 a week or two ago, and we read it out loud with great vigor. It was really a great moment. But more specifically, what I'm going to be talking about is the direct election of the president action team, the moonshot effort of the League of Women Voters US, and then, as Maureen said, spend a fair amount of time on the history and problems with the Electoral College, and then get to the national popular vote that the League endorses as the first step. So our action team is a statewide effort. The election of the president by popular vote was added to the positions for action at the convention 2 years ago. And then we launched our statewide action team in 2024, which, the league has the long-term effort of the moonshot to abolish the Electoral College, starting with the national popular vote. The history of the league with regard to direct election of the president goes back quite a long way. 1970 was the last time that there was a fairly serious effort to abolish the Electoral College by constitutional amendment. It didn't go anywhere, and things really went fallow for a long time. But in 97, the League again called for the abolition of the Electoral College, and 2010 was when they first adopted concurrence to support the national popular vote. The national popular vote effort was started in 2006, so this was a couple of years after that. Very exciting 2018, adding it to making democracy work, which is how the league highlights what's really important for them. And then in 2020, election of the president was made its own category in making democracy work, including both aspects. And now last year in 2024, they started the one person, one vote campaign. And that's what the league is talking about more now than the moonshot. A lot of people don't understand the moonshot. I worked for the government, so I do, but I think they thought this would be a little clearer to people. And their main effort is to do what part of tonight is to educate, engage, get people to support the amendment to abolish the Electoral College, just to let people know about all the problems, also to talk about the Electoral Count Reform Act, but I'm not going to go over that. And they put a real stake in the ground to pass the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact by the next election in 2028. So I find that really exciting. So this is the one person, one vote combined with national popular vote. So there are over 500,000 elected offices in the United States at all the levels. And at all but one of those, the candidate with the most votes wins, what we call a direct election. But for the president, vice president, as we know, it's not assured, it's indirect via the Electoral College. How did we get there? Well, you have to go back to that long, hot summer, 1787 in Philadelphia. They left election of the president till the end. They took 30 votes over 22 days. I've read some places they say that was the most votes they took on any issue. Why did they leave it to the end? Their historians have different views. For one thing, everybody thought it would be George Washington, and they probably couldn't imagine it not being George Washington until he died, or they were embarrassed to talk about it in front of George Washington. But anyway, it was the end. And they did consider popular vote. They considered state governors appointing it, state legislatures, Congress, and then electors. And in the end, they, in my view, punted to electors and basically left it pretty wishy-washy for the states to decide. Because this is Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution, and which nowhere mentions the words electoral college. It says, each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors. So what's really important to realize is that this is a state-by-state decision. It's what's called an exclusive and plenary power of the states. I certainly hope that league members realize when we cast our ballot, we're not voting for the candidates whose names are listed, but for a slate of electors pledged to that. I think if you went and stood on the street, I'm not so sure the average person does. So if you have electors, you have to decide how many electors each state has. And they decided each state would automatically get 2 electors, 1 per senator, and then 1 elector for each congressional district. Okay, now you have to figure out how you're going to allocate congressional districts. And states are allocated congressional districts based on the population of the state, the whole population, not just the voting population, at the most recent census. So having a census every 10 years is written into the Constitution because that's how we figure out congressional districts. And our first census was in 1790. This is the current electoral map. As I said, each state gets 2 and then 1 for each representative. Since about, I believe, the early 60s, this has been capped at 538 total electoral votes, what I call a zero-sum game. So after the last census, a couple states like California and New York lost congressional districts. We gained 1. And so every 10 years, when they go through the process and get the census results, they just redistribute. Well, actually, there's 102 are automatically set for the 50 states in the district. So they automatically, they have to redistribute the others. Some states have exactly 1 congressional district, like Wyoming and Delaware. And then California is currently our biggest, which has 52 electoral or congressional districts. Why was the Electoral College created? Well, we'll go over a number of reasons, but most historians agree that the primary drive was to keep the southern slaveholding states in the process, to get them to ratify the Constitution so that we could really have the United States and have our democracy. This is from the League. The population of the southern states and the northern states was pretty close, a little bigger in the north than the south, as you can see. But the large amount of the population in the South was enslaved persons. And they were very keen to have them counted towards their total population and therefore the congressional districts and therefore their electors. And so that came to the 3/5 compromise, that for every 5 slaves, 3 of them would be counted towards getting this total population. And There are some people who try to dance around this, but I think most people, starting with James Madison and others, say that it really was the slavery issue that drove creating the Electoral College. There were other reasons. The big one, maybe second biggest, was the founding fathers were really not that democratic. They thought decisions should only be made by people who are like them, male, wealthy, white, probably preferably Protestant. Uh, there was valid concern about dissemination of information across candidates across our country. Many of them, like North Carolina, claimed all the land to the Mississippi, though they had no clue what was much beyond Asheville at that time. So how were you going to get the word out? Uh, the whole Constitution is full of this balancing of influence of large and small states, but ensuring that the chattel slave states would ratify it is generally considered the most overwhelming reason. So what are the problems? Well, we've talked about the history and slavery. I'm going to go and give you some data, some information for this on the other issues, but there are many of them. So minority voters are disadvantaged, and this is also data that the League of Women Voters US got. The population per electoral college vote is much lower in states that are predominantly white, and in states that have a higher Black population, the population per electoral college vote is much higher. So the Black votes are discounted, if you will, or things. And if you did all people of color, it would be even more so. There's this whole issue of population. As I said, Wyoming is one of the states. In the last census, it was the state with our smallest population, just over 500,000. So their 3 electoral college votes works out to 192,000 and some per electoral college vote. California, our most populous state last time with over 39 million, they have 737,000 plus per electoral college vote. So in that sense, the person's vote in Wyoming counts a lot more. North Carolina is in between, but a lot closer to the California model than the Wyoming model. So not all votes are equal. One of the biggest problems that we have is winner take all, and that's whichever candidate wins the most votes in the state gets all of their electoral college votes. That margin could be a couple hundred votes, a couple 100,000, it could be 1,000,000. All the other votes are effectively thrown away. This is currently used by 48 states. 2 states, Nebraska and Maine, do proportional voting. What that turns out to be is winner take all by congressional district and winner take all for the 2 Senate electoral college votes by the whole state. If you have gerrymandering, that actually turns out to be worse. So again, the voters who are in the minority effectively do not have their votes counted for president, vice president. A good question to ask people if you're giving a more public presentation is, where did Trump get the most votes in 2020? What state? And the answer is California, because they just have such a big population and all of those were thrown away. Winner take all, like the Electoral College, is not in the Constitution. It's not in the Federalist Papers. James Madison and Thomas Jefferson were opposed to this. 3 states used it in the very first election and then repealed it. But pretty early on, states saw the advantage of it. And the first time a majority of states used were early in the 1800s. By the late 1800s, states used, all of them did. And like I say, now 2 have changed back. And actually, especially early on, states were going back and forth from winner take all to proportional to something else, as they thought they were reading the tea leaves to give advantage to whatever power was, whatever party was in charge. So it's been a very fluid situation. The other evil twin with winner take all is battleground state campaigning. And it turns out for the last 40, 50 years, maybe more, most states are reliably red or blue. And there are 10 to 12 states, sometimes even less. This last time there were 7. It was the first the election of 1800 was the first time that people saw a real advantage in trying to focus on winning certain states. And as we know, it's been a huge factor in the last several elections. And the prediction for 2024, which came out to be true, was that less than 20% of the population would decide the election. Just 95 of the 538 electoral college votes. What are the outcomes of battleground state campaigning? Well, the candidates and especially the people who run their campaigns are smart people. They put all their money and time and effort into those few states. Their events, their polling, their media buys, whatever ground support they have are just concentrated in those. The media is going to follow the candidates, so that's all we hear about. They'll just discuss issues of interest to them. They discuss a lot of fracking if they're in Ohio or Pennsylvania, and wildfires are more of an issue in other states, and they won't talk about them so much. There's demonstrably a higher voter turnout, 6 to maybe 16% in some cases in battleground states. Those people are more motivated. You can say that the voter turnout is depressed in the spectator states. It depends on how you want to look at it. So the battleground states have far more influence. They're not all equal, and they've led to second place presidents and near misses. And I think you'd have to be living under a rock not to be somewhat aware of this for how much they harp on it during the election season. What most people probably aren't so aware of is that this focus on the battleground states continues through the presidency. There are more visits to the swing states, and we see that in North Carolina. There are double the number of FEMA disaster declarations in battleground states. The policies are emphasized, what they talk about, there's higher discretionary spending. And as we know, the second place president doesn't really reflect the will of the people. It's just not a good position to be in. So this is a sum total of all the general election campaign events, which is defined as the ones starting after the conventions, couldn't think of that word, up till election time. And you can see they are really concentrated on a lot of states. Now, and you get onesies and twosies, which probably represent maybe where the vice president's from, or they're adjacent, or a fundraising effort, who knows. But it's very disproportionate, and many states never see any of these at all. 2024 was, the very similar situation, concentrated in a very small number of states. And so, again, as I said before, 7 states with less than 20% of the population. 80% of Americans were just watching the process. This is some data on the turnout of it being higher in battleground states. Wouldn't it be lovely if we could get all of our states up by 10% or more? And probably familiar, well, most of us are very familiar with the 2 second place presidents we've had in our time in this century, but there were 3 in the 1800s. So that's not a very good record. There were a lot more of what we call near misses, where changing a small number of votes could have led to a flip and having another second place president. And certainly in 2020, we heard that for a long time, the votes in Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arizona. But there may be 60,000 votes in Ohio in 2004 could have made Kerry president. And 76, there could have been a flip as well with not very many votes in 2 states. So it can flip either way. It's not just a red or a blue thing. Then there's also what the Constitution says, which is what happens if no candidate slate gets to 270. 538 divided by 2 plus 1, 270 is the magic number to win. This has occurred when there's been a third party candidate, but there are different ways that you can add up the electoral college votes in the different states to get there. The procedure to take care of this was set out in the 12th Amendment, and it's pretty arcane. The president will be chosen by the House of Representatives, and they will choose from the 3 candidates who receive the most electoral college votes. They have to have 2/3 of the House there, and each state gets 1 vote. So California gets 1 vote, and Wyoming gets 1 vote. The District of Columbia doesn't get a vote because they weren't allowed to vote when the 12th Amendment came through. And they just need a simple majority. The vice president is similar. They're chosen in the Senate, but they choose from 2 candidates with the most electoral college votes. And again, and in this one, each senator gets to vote, but the district, of course, is not in play. So this is in no way representational. This is just very, very bizarre. And a near miss in 2020 could have resulted in the contingent election. So there were the 10, 11 plus 16, 37 electoral college votes. If Trump had carried all of those, each candidate would have had 269 votes, and the House would have chosen the winner. Now, they choose it before the new people are in, so Democrats had more members in the House, but Republicans controlled more states, and so they would have presumably chosen the Republican candidate. And so what the Electoral College really does, it identifies to candidates which states to target to contest voting. And we witnessed that in real time too in 2020. So a lot of problems with the Electoral College. In 59 elections, we've had 5 second place presidents, 16 near misses. What can we do to fix this? This is not a good track record. Well, we could amend the Constitution. That is a hard process, and it should be a hard process. We don't want to be able to willy-nilly change things in the Constitution. It has to be passed by 2/3 of the House and Senate and then ratified by 3/4 of the states. It's long, it's usually expensive. You don't need a constitutional convention. That would be where you went and started at ground zero and just totally rewrote the Constitution. And that is something that the League of Women Voters US is very strongly against, because who knows what would happen. So constitutional amendment, as we know from ERA, is a long, hard shot, and you may not get there. Oops, just a minute. So I'm having trouble. I think I went too fast. Okay. I'm having trouble backing up. Okay, I may have to jump back a little bit. The alternative is, of course, adopting the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. And I'm sorry if I skipped a slide. You can't back up my slides, can you? Probably not.
I cannot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
And
hover your cursor kind of towards the left, where there's that little like pencil.
oh,
Not that, but like next, yeah, and there may be a way to go back. Yeah, those little arrows, I think maybe might move you back.
no, let's save. Um, Back toolbar. No, that's not. Oh, there.
Yeah, that might. No. Oh.
Well, okay, maybe I got confused about my own slides. Sorry about that. But this brings us back to our action team and the first goal of adopting the national popular vote. Now it wants me to only do it this way. So this again is, okay, now I know where I am. The moonshot timeline. This is detailed on the League of Women Voters League management site. It's got 5 phases, starting with adopting the national popular vote. But then on there, they also give timelines for everything after that. So after, the plan is to get the national popular vote in place and then let it go for a cycle or two so that people can see that it works very well to have election of the president by popular vote, sort of gauge the public response, then explore framework for change is my understanding of doing the polling and the research and the focus groups, trying to figure out what would work to convince people in Congress, to try and figure out good strategies, announce that we're going to do it, and then finally get it to work. If after 2028, you add up all those times, it's 28 to 44 years. I'm not going to be around that long. I hope some of you are, but we've got to get this process started. And that's where we've finally come to the national popular vote. And this is the elevator speech. It's an agreement among the states that guarantees the presidency to the candidate who gets the most votes when you add up everything in the 50 states in DC. States replace their winner-take-all laws with new state laws that says they will award their electoral college votes to the candidate who wins when you add up all the votes. Whether or not they win in their state, they will put all of their votes to what is the will of the people in the national popular vote. And they are not doing this right away. It will only go in effect when states reaching that 270 magic number have been committed to the compact. So it's a contingent join, if you will, at this point. Another way to put it is it's constitutionally conservative, state-based, nonpartisan, begun in 2006, so it was before the 2016 election. It retains the Electoral College, that's a constitutionally conservative part of it, and the power of the states to determine how the president's elected. It'll go into effect when we hit the 270, and at that point, every vote in every state will be relevant in every election. And that certainly fits with the goal of the League of Women Voters. What are the expected outcomes? Well, candidates are going to need to campaign in all states, urban, rural, suburban. They're going to need to address the issues important to all states. We can assume that voter turnout will increase and that every vote in every state will be relevant. We don't really know what a national campaign for president will look like. I mean, we just haven't seen one. But it will probably be more like a campaign for governor of a given state, in which they do go all over the state because they need to have all of those votes. And we would assume that's how it works for a national vote for president. So you think, well, this is a good idea. How close are we? We are very close. We have 209 electoral college votes. We only need 61 more to reach 270. So the green ones are the ones that have passed it. Maine is the most recent. And I find that especially interesting because Maine was one of those 2 states with proportional voting. So it shows how they will have gone from winner take all to proportional to hopefully by 2028 to the national popular vote. States can and have and will again change how they do this. Orange shows that it was passed by a legislative chamber. Blue has a hearing, and gray, a bill was introduced but didn't go anywhere. Now, you may be pretty excited that North Carolina is orange. Well, it is and it isn't exciting. It happened in 2007, and the North Carolina Senate passed it right after the national popular vote effort started, but never went anywhere in the House. Then it went sort of into limbo in 2017 and 2019. It was introduced. 2021, of course, was pandemic recovery. Nothing happened. I mean, things never really got anywhere. Bills were introduced in 2023, and I've listed the league affiliation of the people who were co-sponsors of this, but it never went anywhere. I have talked to 2 people who represent Buncombe County and the surrounding area in the House who have told me they are going to introduce a bill this year. I asked them again about 10 days ago. I said, I've got these presentations coming up. What's going on? And it's been crickets. So I know there's lots going on, but we're going to need to keep the pressure on to make sure that they do this. One of the things that should be very impressive to people in the General Assembly is that the support for popular vote for the president is definitely increasing. The Pew people have been polling on this for a long time, and you can see it's up to 65% of the population. Spend a minute or 2 about myths, which are the common ones that people come up with. And they'll say, well, just a few big states will control the election. Well, in 2020, there were not quite 160 million votes cast, so you needed not quite 80 million to do that. And you needed to get to 42 states to get that number for Biden. But you only needed electoral votes from 17 states to get Biden to the number to win. He actually got 306. But you really needed a lot broader support. So you're going to need a strong majority of the states to get the most popular votes. Or they'll say a few big cities would control the election. Well, the big cities are not as big as people think. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago are 5% of the population, and they don't all vote the same way. I mean, you get to the 50 biggest cities, and they're 15% of the population. It's mathematically impossible for cities to control the outcome of the election. Los Angeles doesn't control the outcome of the governor's election in California, even though it's a huge place. So it's just not going to happen that way. And we also know that people are moving out of cities by and large, to a certain extent. So this is another myth, and this is another slide from the league, and I guess showing in 2012, a while ago, you needed votes from 39 states to win the popular vote. So that really does represent a large mandate of the country. Other arguments, and these are some of the ones that more academics might make. They say, well, the current system encourages presidential candidates to build coalitions and reach out to all states. Well, you just have to show them the data on the campaign visits that says this is not the way it is. National popular vote would just make different states irrelevant. And now we've seen you really need the majority of the states. And they say, well, our current system, excuse me, gives a strong sense of state identity. Well, when I vote for governor or for my General Assembly representative or senator, yeah, I'm voting as a North Carolinian or for my person. But when I vote for president, when we vote for president, we're Americans. It's the president of the United States. That just doesn't make any sense. And then there are some people say, oh, you need a constitutional amendment to do this. Well, they must have been sleeping through that part of history or civics class, because it's not. Article 2 gives the power to the states. So where are we in the action team? We have liaisons for a number of them, including Maureen for you. We're needed liaisons for a few more. Right now, 2 of us have action teams. I hope that will grow. In 2025, we're trying to get presentations done. I can do them. The liaisons can do them, whatever, for local leagues. We're always looking to talk to the general public in a more general way. We hope to get a statewide petition. I've offered to do a briefing to General Assembly members and their staff, and have gotten a few responses, and I hope that other people will for their members. And if a bill is introduced, I would love to say when a bill is introduced, we definitely want to have 1 or more lobby days in Raleigh. It really is important. And the bill may not go anywhere, but that just gives us a wonderful opportunity for press releases and letters to the editor and all kinds of social media and all kinds of things. A bill is just a wonderful thing to hang your hat on. If you want to get more involved, you can find more information again on the Moonshot or the League of Women Voters One Person, One Vote campaign. The National Popular Vote site has a lot of information. They have videos, they have in-depth stuff on myths. They have, like many sites do, very easy. You put in your name and address and you can quickly generate a letter to your General Assembly representative and senator. They also have just in their letters to the editor, and that I mind that a lot for social media posts, and it just gives you a lot of good things to talk about. If you like to read things rather than hang out online, these are 2 books I recommend. Jesse Wegman is on the New York Times editorial board. He's just talking about the president. Eric Holder, of course, former attorney general, talks about problems with the Senate and the House. Do we need more representatives? With the Supreme Court, he takes a somewhat bigger vote, but they both endorse the national popular vote. Okay, come on. Lost my little arrows. Come on, little arrows. If you want to do a deeper dive, this one is just full of data and tables and who voted what when it tried to go through the House and Senate in the US Congress. This book by Alexander Kesar, but it is a deep dive, I will admit. What can you do? Well, spread the word. Follow us. The 2 chapters with action teams are posting on Facebook and that. If you do that, if you could share it, maybe feature on your chapter's social media platforms, talk to people. It's a good conversation starter. A lot of people have never heard of this. And when you tell them about it, they say, that's genius. Why didn't I know about it? Why didn't anybody tell me about that? And you can also write to your North Carolina legislatures, encourage them to support this, let them know that you care. As I said, form a election of the president by popular vote action team or committee or whatever you want to call it. We have election of the president by popular vote as one of our program priorities for Asheville Buncombe, as well as being for the state. You can do that. Learn how to give a presentation. It doesn't have to be long or complicated. For members, for the general public, I'm always happy to answer questions and stuff. I've gotten some information together on swag and things that I'll be glad to share, that I share with the action team, and just try to be a facilitator of all of that. So that is the questions. And then I think I have one more. Yes. This is what my high school teacher, history teacher called bonus for coming. And I stumbled across this a couple of weeks ago, that even the cat in the hat knows about voting. One vote, two votes, I vote, you vote. I think we should make the cat a league member. But I'll stop sharing and get back to you.
Very nice.
I'll pay his dues.
Thank you, Suzanne. Anybody have any questions? Oh, Ruth Ann was here. I didn't see your name before. Questions or comments, thoughts about us forming an action team, anything?
Well, I like the idea of forming an action team, and Suzanne has given us so many great material and things to link to.
The other thing I can tell you, there are a couple other things. Those of us who at the last two US conventions were very involved with promoting national popular vote and all of that, have formed what we're calling the NPV network. And the league knows about it. We keep them informed. They haven't really endorsed it, but they haven't told us to stop. And so we are having meetings once a month that anybody sign up and join. And there are people who attended our workshop last time or email, names we've gotten. And so it's very interesting to hear in Virginia, they think depending on how their governor's race goes, they're getting really geared up. You get information from other leaguers across the country, and we try to have some information there. And then the National Popular Vote has a call once a month, which is pretty general, and it's not all league people. But if anybody is interested in that, I can tell you, and Marie knows how to get connected with those. And again, you get ideas from other people.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. This was really informative. I think that in ODC, we are gaining momentum and interest in forming an action team. On the National Popular Vote, we did an informal survey back in February, and I think we had like almost 56 respondents. And one of the questions was, where should we put our focus in the upcoming year? What action team? And National Popular Vote came in third with almost 70%.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think time is right for that.
Yeah. Since the chapter spot transformation, we have 18 new members. And we're doing, Amy, you can speak to this. We're doing a luncheon in April, and lots of people who aren't members have signed up.
Yeah, we have almost 50 people.
Wow.
Signed up, and the host, who's a newer league member, I met with her today and did a walkthrough. Sally, we need to connect on that.
Oh, okay.
some little things, but she feels like a lot of the non-members that she invited from her circle would be very interested and motivated by learning about the league's work with the National Popular Vote, and specifically ask for us to speak to it a little bit in the remarks. So I think it's a topic that people really can identify with and say, yeah, this seems fair and democratic, and yeah, why are we still doing things from the 1700s?
Right. Yeah, and you can do different kinds of presentations. I did one at like a group's picnic, and we did it sort of as a trivia contest. And but you can do you have sort of directed questions or whatever. Or sometimes like if it's a more general group, I'll say, well, how many has ever run for president for an office? Third grade class president, something in high school, something for a group, and say, did you, if you expect to win if you got the most votes? And nobody's going to say no. I mean, there are ways. It is so simple and fair. Well, the chief lobbyist says the most effective argument with legislatures are count all the votes, every vote equal, most votes wins. Simple, fair, I mean, that's the way the world runs.
Yeah.
Different, well, states and other countries have used the US Constitution as a model in many cases. They don't take the electoral college part. They leave that on the
Yeah.
on the cutting room floor, so to speak. I mean, it is not something that other people think is a good idea.
Very odd when you look at it closely.
I know it.
For sure. Yeah. So those of you, the rest of you on the call, you know, if you're interested, let me know. And please, if you know, join the league, particularly if they have some, you know, skills with lobbying or writing letters, would be willing to speak to community organizations, those kind of things. Those are the types of people we'll need on the action team. So, and also would be looking for some maybe somebody who would like a somewhat of a leadership position without being on the board. That leading the action team might be a great thing also.
We've found that, well, it kind of comes in waves, and of course, during the election year, we didn't really push doing presentations for just general public. But if you do a few, then there's somebody there who'll say, well, why don't you come talk to my other group? You kind of have to get your toe in the water, and then hopefully it will start snowballing a little bit to talk to the Unitarians are always good for a talk.
You are so right about that.
But they're no, and we've had some people turn us down and say it's too political, and it is political in the small sense, but you know, it's not partisan. But of course, we're used to that in the league, going round and round.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Okay.
Hi, Ruth.
Would you share the
Hello,
slide deck,
Suzanne.
Suzanne?
Sure. I just ask that you not, you know, these are mine, and you know, you can share them with the league, but you know, I wouldn't want them showing up on social media or whatever. But I mean, and a number of them, if you go to the league management site, to that one link, a number of them I've taken right from there. The league has, and some other people in the league, they divide states. Well, they say, well, there are states that have passed, and there's a very active group that's been going on for a long time based in Illinois. And they say, well, our state has passed, so we're just going to work on the Electoral College. And so the league has one set of slides that they've done, and that's what some of those purple and gold slides are, that they've done about the Electoral College, and then another one about the national popular vote. But you can't talk about the national popular vote unless you start with the Electoral College. It just wouldn't make a bit of sense. So I have merged things from that. So that's, I mean, it's in that sense, I'm not saying anything that's not sanctioned, but they don't say it, you know, they see it. It's also that the US League, see, you know, the Electoral College and the constitutional amendment is a federal level. The other thing is state by state. So they are supportive, but I think they feel they have to be a little careful on that regard. So that's another way you can look at it, that they don't. You know, they keep it on. But we've also had right now in both Maine and Oregon, there have been bills introduced to change back from the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact to winner take all. You know, in Nebraska, they tried to change, you know, in mid-cycle to change to winner take all. There was an effort because one party thought another party was going to win a congressional district they didn't want them to win. So states that have passed it need to be vigilant too. And I think that's a message that those of us trying to work at the more national level are trying to get on, that you really still have to keep educating people and saying, yes, we want to be in this, and not backslide.
Suzanne, I'm wondering, do I already have that slide presentation?
No, you have something close, but
Okay.
I can send this to you. I didn't see any typos. If anybody saw any typos, let me know quick. But
I did not.
well, it's been, you know, I've been doing it, and you finally get to where you never see them quite so well as when you see it on a bigger screen or whatever.
Right. Oops.
Oops.
Know
And
that.
if you, I mean, I'm sure Maureen could do it, but I mean, my husband and I are doing a bit of a tour of North Carolina. If you would ever want me to come and talk,
Oh,
I'd be happy to. Had a great time in Moore County, and we stayed at the Pinehurst Resort, and
mm,
we're becoming more North Carolinians. So yeah,
And Suzanne, of course, will be here in May for the
right. And
convention.
we're
right.
going to caucus at the time allotted, which is Saturday morning from 7:30 to 8:15.
Oh.
That's the time. It's a pretty full convention, I guess, but it's going to be
Yeah, I
pretty
think it
exciting.
is. Well, we'll see you then.
Oh, yes. And the purple hippo,
The
happy
Velvet Hippo,
velvet hippo.
a woman-owned business.
Right, right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when I went to it with a group, another group I volunteer for, we walked in and it was kind of loud. And I thought to myself, well, they were all young people. And I said, well, when we go as a league, we're going to be kind of loud. So it's all good.
Yeah. Oh, well,
Yeah.
no, I'm
It's
looking
it's
forward.
a it's a happening place.
Oh, good.
Got a nice rooftop bar too.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and we're hoping for the good weather so we can go up
Mhm.
there and
Yeah.
All right, ladies, any other questions or thoughts before we wrap things up?
no, but I want to thank Maureen. Thank Maureen too, but
You're welcome.
Suzanne for this
Yeah, of course.
Oh, wow.
putting everything
I was
into
happy to do
perspective.
it.
You
Okay.
are welcome, Jane, and thank you so much, Suzanne.
Okay.
It was a great presentation, and we're going to be working on this.
Okay. We'll see you soon. Okay.